To protect my reputation, I friend-zoned the male lead. When I turned 14, I suddenly remembered the future. I wasn't the heroine of a romance novel. That was Lila. I wasn't even the main villain. I was the villainous second female lead, Darcy, the childhood friend destined to fall hopelessly in love with the male lead. Aaron, grow consumed by jealousy, and be publicly humiliated before we even graduated high school. The solution seemed obvious. Don't fall in love with him. Easy. After this knowledge bomb dropped, I wanted nothing to do with Aaron, but I knew that as a character, I would still be entangled with him one way or another. So I buried my crush the same day I learned my fate and decided we'd stay nothing more than friends. Problem solved. Or so I thought. 4 years later, I was completely over him. Unfortunately, everyone else was still following the original plot. The male lead and female lead still expected me to play the jealous love rival in their high school romance. They still wanted me to become the stepping stone that made their love story shine. What they didn't realize was that I'd abandoned that role years ago. If they insisted on dragging me into their drama, then we'd do things my way. Plan A had been staying friends. Now it was time for Plan B. Operation Friend Zone. I need your opinion on something. I looked up from my textbook to find my childhood friend, Aaron, standing beside my desk with an unusually awkward expression. Sure. What's up? He rubbed the back of his neck. I need to buy a gift for a friend. A gift? Yeah. He didn't elaborate. I followed without asking any more questions. This was part of the plot, after all. The jewelry store glittered beneath warm lights as we stepped inside. The display cases were filled with delicate necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. What do you think, Darcy? Aaron asked, smiling a bit strangely. I leaned over the glass case, pretending to consider each option carefully. In the original story, this was where I was supposed to misunderstand. He would act vague enough that I'd think the gift was for me, only to present it to the heroine, Lila, on her birthday the next day. Fortunately, I already knew the script. My eyes settled on a necklace with a pink diamond surrounded by tiny crystals that flared outward like a starburst. It was pretty, just not on me. The soft pink would wash out my complexion completely. Cool colors like greens and blues suited me better. On the heroine, though, it would be stunning. That one, I said, pointing to it. Aaron followed my finger and smiled. Really? I think it suits the person you're buying it for. I kept it vague. As the clerk wrapped the necklace, I waited quietly by the counter. Thanks, he said as we left the store. You always have good taste. I've had a lot of practice helping you pick gifts. He laughed, apparently taking that as a joke. It wasn't. I've been helping him pick out gifts for years now. The next afternoon, Lila arrived at school wearing the exact same pink starburst necklace. Several classmates immediately looked toward me, waiting for some kind of reaction. I glanced at the necklace, smiled politely, and returned to reading my book. It really did suit her. For nearly 2 years, Aaron and I studied together almost every afternoon. It wasn't exactly romantic. He'd complained that his grades weren't high enough, so he'd asked me to tutor him. We made flashcards, quizzed each other before exams, and somehow managed to make studying bearable. Then Lila transferred into our class. Our study sessions became shorter, then less frequent. Eventually, they stopped altogether. The first few times, I tried to drag him back. Library after school? I already have plans. What about tomorrow? I'm going out. A week later, I stopped asking. Instead, I joined a study group with 3 girls from my class. It turned out to be far more fun than tutoring one distracted boy. We shared notes, explained difficult problems to one another, and celebrated every improvement on our quizzes. I'd gotten so used to teaching that I naturally slipped into helping everyone understand the tougher subjects. By the next monthly exam, every member of our group had climbed several places in the class rankings. My parents bought me boba because I moved up 7 spots. One girl cheered, another grinned. Mine actually let me skip chores for a day. As everyone laughed, one of the girls hesitated before asking, Darcy, can I ask something? Aren't you and Aaron, you know? She trails off meaningfully. The dating rumors? I laughed, shaking my head. No. 3 pairs of eyes blinked at me. Aaron asked me to help him raise his grades 2 years ago. That's why we studied together all the time. I shrugged. Recently, he said he doesn't need my help anymore, so I found a new group. You weren't chasing him? What? No. I grimaced jokingly and laughed it off. The girls exchanged glances before bursting into laughter. We seriously thought you liked him. I smiled and opened my notebook. Nope, we were just study buddies. The girls looked at one another again. Somehow, that simple answer made far more sense than every rumor they'd heard. One day, I was browsing a department store when a familiar voice called my name. Hey, Darcy! I turned to find Aaron waving beside his mother. Auntie, Aaron, I smiled. What a coincidence. It certainly is, she laughed. I'm trying to buy this stubborn boy some new clothes. He keeps saying everything looks the same. I do not, Aaron protested, looking both annoyed and embarrassed. Clearly lying. You absolutely do. His mom shook her head with a smile. His mom handed him a few shirts, and with an exaggerated sigh, Aaron disappeared into the dressing room. The moment the door closed, Auntie leaned closer, darked. How have you been? I haven't seen you over for dinner lately. I've been studying with a different group after school. Oh, how's that going? Really well. There are 4 of us now, and everyone's grades have been improving. She smiled warmly. I'm glad to hear it. The dressing room curtain slid open. What do you think? Aaron asked, smoothing the front of a navy sweater. It fits, I said honestly. He looked oddly relieved before disappearing to change again. Auntie chuckled under her breath. He's been fussier than usual lately. A few minutes later, after paying for his clothes, we walked past the women's section. Aaron slowed to a stop. If you were buying a dress, which one would you pick? I glanced over the dresses on display. Near the center hung a soft pink dress with delicate embroidery around the sleeves. Pretty, just not on me. The color would wash me out completely. On the heroine, though, it would be gorgeous. That pink one is nice, I said. Aaron nodded thoughtfully. Just then, Auntie noticed a display of handbags and wandered a few steps away. While she chatted with a sales associate, he quietly picked up the pink dress and headed toward the register. I pretended not to notice. Auntie came back a moment later, showing off her new purse. It was on sale. You're not buying anything? I smiled and shook my head. The clothes and accessories here are beautiful, but they're not really my style. I think I'll check another store. She nodded in understanding. Well, come visit sometime. I will. I waved to both of them before heading toward the exit. Behind me, Aaron watched Darcy leave without saying another word. Then his phone chimed with a text from Lila, and he doesn't spare Darcy another thought. A few days later, the annual school festival was in full swing. Someone suddenly called my name. Finally, the time had come. There she is. Hey, Darcy. What's wrong with you? I turned to find my childhood friend, Aaron, standing in the middle of a growing crowd with Lila clinging to his arm. He looked at me with disappointment. I know you're jealous that I'm dating Lila now, but you've gone too far. Lila lowered her head, looking hurt. You don't have to keep making things difficult for us. I stared at the two of them for several seconds before raising an eyebrow. What? I have no idea what you are talking about. This is the first time I've seen you all day. The crowd quieted. Aaron frowned. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. I know you have a crush on me. And keep getting between me and Lila. I blinked, putting on a baffled expression. Who says I have a crush on you? His expression froze, not expecting that. I looked between Aaron and Lila in genuine confusion. Aren't we just friends? Complete silence fell over the crowd. A few more people wandered over to see what was going on. This is kind of awkward. I scratched my cheek. You've been dating her for 3 months. Neither of them spoke. I tilted my head. I honestly don't understand what you're accusing me of. The whispers started immediately. Aaron recovered just enough to point at Lila. Then why have you been acting so strange ever since we started dating? You're obviously jealous. I've treated her well, bought her gifts. He gestured proudly to the Lila's outfit. Like the dress she's wearing. I stared at him for a long moment before letting out a small sigh. If I didn't support your relationship, I said patiently and calmly, why would I help you pick out the necklace you gave her when you first started dating? His mouth opened. And that dress she's wearing? I continued. You asked me which one looked best just last weekend. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I picked both because they'd look good on her. Besides, I shrugged. Pink clashes with my complexion. I'd never wear either of them. Lila instinctively looked down at her soft pink dress and then at my dark blue dress. I gave her an apologetic smile. Sorry, he's always been terrible at choosing gifts. More whispers. A few people snicker. I've been helping Aaron buy gifts ever since 6th grade, I continued. Remember the Secret Santa exchange? He completely panicked because he couldn't figure out what to buy. A gasp came from somewhere in the crowd. Wait! One of the boys shouted. You picked out that Lego set? I blinked. Yeah. His eyes went wide. Then he slapped his forehead dramatically. I thought Aaron picked it. I gave him my chocolate pudding every lunch for a month because I was so grateful. Laughter erupted around us. No way. So, Darcy's been picking out his gifts for his girlfriend this whole time? I thought he was just really thoughtful. Aaron's face flushed a brilliant shade of red. That's not... But the laughter only grew louder. Beside him, Lila's smile had completely disappeared. She shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks turning pink as she realized the beautiful necklace around her neck and the dress she was wearing hadn't been thoughtful choices from her new boyfriend at all. They had both been chosen by the girl they were trying to humiliate. I scratched the back of my head awkwardly. So, anyway, this is kind of embarrassing. I glanced between the two of them. I didn't realize you thought of me as, a woman. A few students snorted. I honestly thought we were just friends. You've never said anything that made me think otherwise. I mean, I gestured vaguely. We never really went anywhere together alone or hung out outside of school. Aaron finally found his voice, summoning up a bit more fight, trying to desperately salvage the situation. Darcy, what are you talking about? He snapped. You used to pester me every day to study together. You got upset whenever I wanted to spend time with Lila instead. Someone in the crowd chimed in. I remember that. She was always looking for you after school. Before I could answer, a familiar voice spoke up. That's because they were study buddies. One of the girls from my study group stepped forward. She joined our group last month after he stopped studying with her. Has anyone seen her bother him about studying since then? The crowd fell silent again. My grades went up 9 places after she joined us, the girl continued proudly. My parents were so happy they bought me boba. Twice? Her friend nodded enthusiastically. Mine went up 6 places. Darcy's really good at explaining things. Another student laughed. Hold on, didn't Aaron's grades drop? A boy leaning against the wall folded his arms with a grin. 20 places, wasn't it? Several students immediately nodded. Yeah, I remember that. I was shocked. So he stopped studying with Darcy and his grades tanked? More laughter broke out. Aaron's face turned scarlet. Beside him, Lila looked equally uncomfortable. She had proudly dated one of the top students in the class. Now everyone was quietly putting the pieces together. His grades hadn't risen because he was brilliant. They had risen because someone else had spent 2 years dragging him through every exam. And the moment Aaron stopped studying with Darcy, his ranking had fallen right off a cliff. I looked at the two of them for a moment before letting out a quiet sigh and shaking my head. I'm sorry, Aaron. I honestly thought we were just friends. I never saw you in a romantic way. His face stiffened. Aaron wanted nothing more than for me to just stop talking. I didn't plan on granting his silent wish. To be honest, I hesitated for a second before deciding honesty was the most humiliating option. You're just not my type. A few students leaned in gleefully, eyes shining with laughter, but wanting to hear me speak. You're too thin, I said matter-of-factly, and I prefer men with longer hair. Aaron's face cycled through pale, green, and bright red so quickly it was almost impressive. Finally, he blurted out, Then what about all those years we walked to school together? You came to my house every morning and knocked on my window. Several students nodded. Yeah, I remember seeing that. I thought that meant they were basically dating. I sighed again. The truth is a lot less romantic. I looked at Aaron. Do you remember when Auntie started her new job in 8th grade? Her schedule changed and she had to leave before sunrise. His expression instantly faltered. And do you remember oversleeping every single day for a week until the school called your mother about your tardiness? His eyes widened. I continued mercilessly. Auntie asked me to wake you up every morning and make sure you actually left for school. The first 2 days I knocked on your window, woke you up, and left. I spread my hands. You climbed right back into bed and were late anyway. Laughter started bubbling through the crowd. So after that, I continued, I had to stand there and make sure you got dressed, brushed your teeth, grabbed your backpack, and actually walked out the front door. By now, people were openly laughing. I only stopped a few months ago because you told me you could handle it yourself. I smiled apologetically. I figured you were finally mature enough. I tilted my head. Then you were late 4 times the very next week. Everyone exploded with laughter. Even students trying to stay serious couldn't hold it in. Beside him, Lila unconsciously took a full step away. She suddenly remembered those mornings. Aaron had shown up late carrying breakfast or snacks for her, and she'd secretly celebrated, believing he'd sacrificed punctuality just to see her. The truth was far less romantic. He hadn't been late because of love. He'd been late because he'd fired his human alarm clock. I looked at my childhood friend. Aaron stood frozen, staring at the ground as though the answers to all of life's problems might be hiding between the cracks in the pavement. Seeing Aaron so shocked, everyone could instantly tell that I was telling the truth. Beside him, Lila had now quietly taken several steps away. Moments ago, she'd been clinging proudly to his arm. Now there was nearly an arm's length of space between them. I scratched the back of my head. Well, I'm just going to head home. No one stopped me. I'm sorry if I accidentally made you misunderstand our relationship. And since it has come to this, I don't think we can be friends anymore. The words hung awkwardly in the air. Some people cringed from the secondhand embarrassment. Others grinned gleefully. Then I turned to the heroine of this entire farce. Lila's face was pale, and she looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Oh, and just so we're clear, I said with a small smile, there was never anything between me and him. I gestured toward the necklace around her neck. I was actually happy when he found a girlfriend. That's why I helped him pick out that necklace. My eyes drifted to her pink dress. I shrugged. And the dress, too. For a second, no one said a word. Aaron was clearly crashing and trying to reboot, and Lila looked like she wanted to be anywhere but here. I gave the crowd an awkward little wave. Anyway, see you all on Monday. Then I turned around and walked away. No dramatic exit. No triumphant speech. Just one woman leaving behind the two people whose carefully planned public humiliation had somehow become their own. The fallout was immediate. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation, and within hours, it had spread through the student body. By the next morning, everyone had seen the video. The video was eventually taken down, but it didn't matter. Once something reached the internet, it was never truly gone. The male lead's reputation collapsed overnight. The perfect student who had always been admired became a joke. The boy who confidently accused his childhood friend of being jealous had ended up being the one publicly rejected. People called it the greatest friend zone in school history. His popularity never recovered. Unfortunately for him, his mother saw the video before he even made it home that same night. The moment he stepped through the door, he was greeted by her furious expression. She had a lot to say. After a very long lecture, his allowance was cut off, and he was ordered to apologize properly. She came to Darcy the next day as well. I'm sorry, Auntie said, looking genuinely embarrassed. I asked you to keep an eye on my son because I trusted your judgment. I knew you were sensible and responsible. She sighed, shaking her head, still angry at how her son had treated this good girl. If I had known he was spreading such ridiculous rumors about you, I would have set him right much sooner. You've helped us out enough. From now on, don't worry about him. He won't bother you again. I smiled. I never blamed her. After all, she had only ever seen me as the sensible child who helped her troublesome son. It's okay, Auntie. I know you didn't mean for any of this to happen. The heroine's downfall was almost as quick as the male leads. The girl who had once been surrounded by friends became the subject of whispers and laughter. Everywhere she went, people talked behind her back. Lila tried to explain. She tried to tell people that things weren't what they seemed. But no one believed her anymore. After all, Lila had been the one who stood beside Aaron and accused me of being jealous. Now, everyone knew the truth, and they weren't stupid enough to believe her again. The relationship between Aaron and Lila quickly fell apart under the weight of gossip and resentment. Lila transferred schools first. Then, a few days later, Aaron received a breakup message. Just like that. No conversation, no explanation. She simply ended things through text. Ruthless. A week later, Aaron came looking for me. For a moment, I wondered what he wanted. Then he opened his mouth. Darcy, can we go back to how things were? I stared at him. When we were just friends, you accused me of being a jealous, villainous woman, always coming between you and the girl you loved. His expression changed. And now that she broke up with you, you want to be friends again? I shook my head. Dream on. He looked hurt, but I didn't care. If you bother me again, I'll tell Auntie that you're harassing me. That was enough to make him leave. After that, time passed. Without my tutoring, Aaron's grades continued to fall. The top student everyone admired became someone near the bottom of the class. Eventually, he graduated and went to college out of town. Maybe he wanted a fresh start. Maybe he wanted to escape the rumors. Honestly, I didn't care. I had my own future to worry about. My study group became my closest friends. The girls who had once been classmates became people I couldn't imagine my life without. We all ended up attending the same university. After unpacking the last of my things in my dorm room, I sat down on my bed and let out a long breath. I had survived the plot. And finally, I was free to become whoever I wanted to be. Thank you for listening to another LBD Reader's story.